Hey guys, I'm back with a new video. In this video, let us discuss about immediately invoked function expressions. So the topic for today is immediately invoked function expressions. Immediately invoked function expressions. Okay, so we learned in the previous video that the functions are one of the core building blocks of any programming language, and JavaScript has taken the functions to a whole new level. Now functions are said to be a collection of statements to execute in a proper sequence in a particular context. Now JavaScript provides us a variety of methods to define and execute functions. There are named functions, anonymous functions, then we have function expressions, function declarations that we discussed in the previous videos. And then there are these functions that are executed as soon as they are mounted. So executed as soon as they are mounted. So these are those functions that are fired as soon as they are mounted, and these functions are known as IIFEs or immediately invoked function expressions. So this. Now let us dive a little deeper to know more about IIFEs. Now the syntax for IIFEs is this. So we define an open parenthesis, then we define a function within this, then again an open parenthesis, close parenthesis, curly braces that defines your body of code that should go inside this, and then close this. Okay, so you have an open parenthesis, then you have this function declaration that you are already familiar with, and then you wrap this function declaration within an opening and closing parenthesis. Now all the code will go inside this. Now this is the syntax for function that are known as immediately invoked function expressions. Now let us probe some more to understand the relation between the name as syntax or the type of functions. Now you must be wondering why the name IIFEs. Now let me demonstrate this. This type of functions are called immediately invoked, as these functions are executed as soon as they are mounted onto the stack. Now it requires no explicit call to invoke the function. If you look at the syntax itself, you can see we have two pair of close parentheses. The first contains the logic that need to be executed, and the second one is generally what we include when we invoke the function. The second parenthesis is basically responsible to tell the compiler that the function expression has to be executed immediately. Now function expressions, you know about function expression from the previous video, that it's a function that is used as an expression. Now JavaScript will let us use functions as function expressions if we basically assign a function to some variables. So we saw in the previous video, like if I want to set up a constant, say a, and set some function in that variable or in that constant. Now this is something called as function expressions. We also learned that these expressions cannot be hoisted in JavaScript. We also touched a bit about hoisting as well. So do check out that video for learning about function expressions. I explained every bit of stuff related to function expression in that video. So coming back to IIFEs, they are closely related to function expressions. So when you assign a function to a variable, you wrap the function within the parenthesis, or you can put a logical not in front of a function. Now I will demonstrate all this concept in a separate code demo. So we will do a code demo after the explanation. Now if you want to know how we can convert functions to IIFEs, let us learn that as well. Now as we have already seen what an IIFE is and how the syntactical structure exactly looks like. So this is the syntactical structure. It can be broken down to make a little bit more sense. So we can convert a regular function into an IIFE following only 2 steps. So given any regular function definition, what you need to do is you need to wrap the definition that you saw. We had the function declaration with us. We wrapped it with a closed pair of parentheses. Now this will create your function expression. Now lastly, we add another pair of parentheses here, and this will help us in invoking the function. Or you can pass some parameters to it. If the function expression that you have defined takes parameters, you can pass the parameters to it. Suppose it takes a and b as parameters, so you can give some values to it, say 5 and 6, and here you are feeding the parameters to your arguments. So whatever your arguments are, here we will have 5 or 6 when the values are passed in to your parameters or so-called arguments, and then you will be able to use the parameters within your curly braces. So within this area, you will be able to use all the parameters that you pass while invoking the function. So this is how you have converted a regular function into an IIFE. So let us discuss about the important points that I would like to tell you about IIFEs, and then we will see a code demo. So let me make up some space for this. I will clear the canvas, and then some salient points regarding IIFEs. Now IIFEs are something that you will find in low-level libraries like jQuery being used most often. So because you want to protect your variables within the scope in which they are defined. So mostly if you define a function like an IIFE, you want that your variables that are defined within that function expression should not get leaked out of that function. So you are defining an inherent scope by using IIFEs. Okay, so the very first point is that IIFEs follow their own scope like any other function or variable in JavaScript. They have their own scope like any other function or variable. The part of the name immediately invoked is sometimes very much confusing to new developers, as they expect the IIFE to execute irrespective of the scope of the function, which is definitely wrong. For example, if you take up a following example where the IIFE is defined within a function and will only be immediately invoked if we call the parent function. So what I'm saying is, suppose we have a function, I say it's an IIFE parent. Okay, so I'm defining a function called as IIFE parent, within which suppose we have some console logs. So I say some console log is there. Then we have an immediately invoked function expression, which you know starts with the opening parenthesis, then a function, then some logs here, say another console log, and then you simply close it and then you invoke it. Then say some other log is there. Okay, and then you invoke the IIFE parent function instead of invoking the IIFE, because we have defined the IIFE within the parent function so the IIFE is now scoped to a parent function and not to the global file. It is within the scope of the IIFE parent function. So you can invoke the IIFE parent function like this, again using the parenthesis and invoking the function. So you can see here that if you call the function, this will also get invoked. So first you will get the log, then this will get triggered, the log will immediately get invoked, I mean this function will get self-invoked, and then this log, and then the function is done. So now IIFE, as we know that they have their own scope, the variable that you're declaring in the function expression will not be available outside the function. So whatever variable that you define within the IIFE. Suppose like this is an IIFE here. If we define here some variables within the IIFE, now those variables are only visible within the context of the IIFE, and they are not available outside, or they will not get leaked out of the IIFE that you have defined here. So the variable that are defined within the IIFE will not be available, say here. Okay, it will not be available here, neither it will be available here. It will be available only within this IIFE. Okay, and will get executed or will get created as and when you invoke the IIFE. So this is one more important point regarding IIFE. Now that is the variable that you declare in the function expression. They will not get leaked outside your function. Now similar to other function IIFEs can also be named or anonymous. So your IIFE can have a name or they can go anonymous as well. But even if an IIFE doesn't have a name, even if it does have a name, it is impossible to refer or invoke it. Okay, so they're self-invoking, so you do not require any name as such. Like here I haven't defined a name here. You are using just the invoking parenthesis to invoke the IIFE that you have defined within the IIFE parent function, and it is defined in the context of IIFE parent function. Although the variables that you define within the IIFE, they will get only scoped to the IIFE and they will not get leaked outside the context of IIFE. And lastly, IIFEs can also have parameters, as I just told you. So you can pass some parameters as we discussed in the previous written slide. So let us do a code demo to understand this, and then we will run this as well. So I'm back in my code editor in my Visual Studio Code. Let us do a demo. So to define an IIFE, what we can do here is we can start with an opening close pair parenthesis, then we will say function, and I will be using an anonymous function expression, then this. Also remember, when you want to invoke the function expression, you just have to use the invoking parenthesis, so like this, and then you can pass some parameters as well. So we can say channel name and subscriber name. So I can pass the value for the channel name, the nerdydev, and the subscriber name being Alex. Now whatever variables that I defined within this, now within the scope of the IIFE, they will be only available within line number 2 to line number 5, and they will not get leaked outside the context of IIFE. Okay, so they will be only present within the IIFE and they will not be available outside. So once the IIFE is done, they will get destroyed. So this is what we mean by variables limited to the IIFE and not getting leaked. So console.log, thanks for subscribing to channel name, and then I will say subscriber name. And you can see we have passed 2 arguments to our invoking parenthesis, so this function should get self-invoked once I run the script. Now I will go back to my terminal, and within the functions demo folder I will run node IIFE.js, and it is taking some time. So you can see thanks for subscribing to the nerdydev Alex. So I hope I completely demystified everything about IIFE. If you want to learn more about IIFE, do give a comment in the down below this video. So also you can tell me from where you are, so I can provide you a cheat sheet of JavaScript. So I will see you guys in the very next video. Thanks a lot guys.